Welcome to the Inner Chief Podcast, episode 357. I am your host, Greg Layton, founder of Chief Maker and the Council of Chiefs. I believe there is a great chief in all of us, and that through listening to the stories, strategies, and techniques of great CEOs and gurus, each of you can find and leave your own legacy through your work and life. The Inner Chief Podcast is where you will learn how to think and make moves like a CEO, like a true chief. For over a decade, I've helped CEOs and senior executives around the world boldly lead change, inspire their people, and leave a legacy. On the Inner Chief Podcast, I bring these stories to life with deep diving CEO interviews, interspersed with minisodes covering key leadership challenges, so you will find your own path to greatness as an executive. G'day, Chiefs. Welcome to the Inner Chief Podcast and this special series of episodes on how to give feedback and embed it in your team's culture. This is episode 357, and today we're going to talk about how to prepare for feedback in particular. Then we're going to talk about in episode 358 how to deliver it like a true chief. And in episode 359, we're going to talk about how to embed that in your team's culture. Chief, feedback is the breakfast of champions. It's the oxygen of legends. Way back in 2005 and 6, I was working over in Canada. So this is about 20 years ago now. I was an up-and-coming young, I wouldn't say I was executive level yet, but I was going really well, being promoted to really solid levels. But then a few things started to not go, I suppose, as planned. I had a few issues going on outside financially, relationship-wise, and at work, I was starting to get that level where I was being found out. And I had this magnificent boss, this guy called Chad, who I really respected. And I'll never forget this one day. Chad and he took me for a walk. He said, hey, let's just go and get a coffee one morning. And I remember walking through the snow in Calgary. As I'm walking across town, Chad said to me a few things about being a nice guy. And he said, you know what, Greg, you're a really good young professional, you're a good young guy. But dear me, mate, you can be lazy. You just cut too many corners. And I really, firstly, it hit me really hard. In part for two reasons. One, I really respected him, trusted him. And two, he was right. Just knowing that someone really had the courage to tell me what I always needed to hear was so important. I can tell you now I wouldn't be where I am because Chad cared enough to give me some hard truths. And for 20 years since then, I've hardly cut a corner, right? I've really, really dialed in. And he was a wonderful coach and mentor and friend because he really then worked me through, hey, this is a classic personality trait for someone like you. Easy to fix. You just lean into it. And we worked on some ways to fix that. And a lot of personal growth came from it. In my role as coach, I get to give feedback an awful lot. In fact, it's half the job. It is easier in my job than it is normally in a leadership role because people call me up for feedback. That is essentially the assumption of the role and the relationship. What I wanted to give you now, though, is some of the preparation that I would do in order to give feedback to an individual or a team, some of the scripts or the different processes I might use in feedback, and then some tools to make it more embedded in your culture. So, first and foremost, we have a downloadable resource, a full PDF that covers all these 3 episodes, all this topic. Just go to chiefmaker.com/feedback and you'll get a really detailed PDF. It's even got a few more of the resources that we talk about, so really worthwhile getting. That's at chiefmaker.com/feedback. Now, where does feedback fit in for the whole high-performance team culture? If you know the Chief Maker pillars of high performance, we talk about mission, people, culture, tools, and execution. Let me talk those through really quickly. Mission is a clear vision steeped in a bigger goal. It's about having clarity of strategy, clear roles across the group, and alignment. That's the mission. We know where we're going and we know how we're going to get there. We know who's doing what, right? Then the team is the right people with the right capability, in the right roles, the right development plans. We all know that we have the grunt power and good people to do the job, right? Culture, team united, constantly improving, giving, receiving feedback. It's endurable and it's accountable, right? A great culture, good rituals and traditions. The tools are scoreboards, the systems are processes and hardware to do their job effectively. And then execution is good governance and tracking of what you're doing, risk management, stakeholder management, communicating what's going on across your team and or business. So these are the 5 pillars of a high-performance culture: mission, team, culture, tools, execution. In any of those, if you take feedback out, it plummets. The quality plummets. Any team I've ever walked into where they were either too kind to each other or not nice and or almost the opposite, a bit mean to each other, or there just was this silence and people working in silos, I can tell you that all elements of this start to really falter and the results are really quite clear. It's not a nice place to work. All high-performing environments, all great chiefs are fantastic at feedback. And almost all of them have learned how to do it, right? They've added skills, they've read books, they've done anything they can to improve their skill set. In my early years in business, before I learned coaching, I knew nothing about this. It wasn't that natural to me. I didn't love conflict. I really had to lean into this and grow that skill set. Okay? Even now, if I get in a lot of conflict, I really find my mind goes into overload and I've really got to think in a lot of depth about how I'm going to solve this problem. My mind won't settle until I've solved it. So this kind of skill set is so important for a character like me, and I'm sure for a lot of you, because it will help you deal with probably some of the most stressful parts of business, and that's all people related. So, Chief, in this episode, I want to talk to you about how do I prepare like a coach. That's episode 357. Episode 358 is how to deliver like a true chief. In episode 359, we'll be fostering a culture of feedback across your team. Okay? First and foremost, when I'm talking about like preparing and prepare like a coach, you really do have to just start with a couple of principles and mindsets. The first one is this: there is no such thing as negative feedback. Not when it is done properly. Feedback is the greatest tool you have to improve skill, align the team, craft culture, build trust, get results, and help people achieve their dreams. How could that be negative? You have to view feedback as one of your greatest tools. Okay? Big core principles. Every person gets feedback, from the lowest performer to the highest performer, and everyone in between. Very often, we tend to avoid the edges. It's really hard to give feedback to someone who's a low performer. And we often think, oh, high performers are going all right, they don't need feedback. They really do, Chief. They really do need to have feedback. When you have a high performer in their team, you've got to drive them and really make sure they're fully occupied. Give them feedback, help them grow. Always be thinking, hey, what's the next big thing for them? How am I going to help them get there? You won't keep a high performer forever. That's the truth. They're going to keep going. So your job is to be their greatest leader in their career by helping them slingshot to their next level. Keep them as long as is reasonable and then let them fly. The low performers, they're battling for a reason. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but really lean into that. Okay? The next core principle is an insight made by the coach is owned by the coach. An insight made by the client is owned by the client. And what I mean by that is this: if you come and tell someone what they're doing wrong, they don't own it. If you help them come to their own realization that maybe someone else has taken something the wrong way, Or maybe their performance is not as good as they thought it was. Or maybe they could be doing even more because they've still got potential. And they realize that, they will own it. An insight made by the client, which is the person you're coaching, right? They own it. When you make the insight, you own it. Now, there are many ways you can create a scenario where you can create that insight, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Final principle is this: dancing around an issue serves no one. If a high performer is starting to get out of their lane, or a low performer is not going well, or we've got too many people in the middle who are not doing anything, serves no one. Doesn't serve you, certainly doesn't serve the broader team, and absolutely doesn't serve that individual who could really use a little bit of feedback and coaching right now. The biggest pitfalls, and every chief I know has gone through this from the very, very top all the way through to frontline leaders, being too kind, right? It's just so easy because we really do care, chief. And I totally get that. I find that one of the little moments, or one of the things I've got to work on the most, is just remembering that you can be too kind, right? You can actually be kinder to someone by giving them feedback, because you're operating about thinking about their career, about their life, about the one thing they really, really need. 2, chief, not enough trust. Really common. You have to really think about this. I want you to consider a moment in your career where someone who was a boss or a peer or a senior stakeholder who you didn't necessarily respect or have the greatest trust with gave you feedback. Might even be on a document or a strategy or something you were doing. And normally you put a block up. Sorry. When there's no trust, there's a block that pops up. Okay, now, 3rd pitfall is just trying to do big feedback. The vast majority of feedback is small, easy, 1%ers, everyday stuff. Okay, with zero emotion, it's just really helpful kind of stuff. So if we just think that feedback is only the big, then we're always going to find it hard when those key moments come. If we've got a track record of continually giving feedback and people feeling like you have their best interest at heart, feedback's easy. Okay, so Chief, how do you prepare like a coach? Okay, first thing is feedback is never done in isolation. No one lives on an island. Someone in a role at work, there's a whole range of things going on around them. And it's really helpful to think about these things before you give feedback. Here's a few things. Number 1, and Chief, this is in the notes and it's in the downloadable. First thing to think about is business performance and change urgency. So if you have a business that's in real trouble, okay, and maybe it's in, if you know the fix, reset, grow, change, and gain model, for example, maybe the business is in a bit of a reset mode or even in a fix mode where we're in real urgency, feedback then is even more important than ever. Okay, so that provides some context because it will tell you how long you can accept and hold on to the current level of performance. Is there a history of culture of feedback in the team? Maybe you take on a leadership role, or maybe you've been there for a while and there has been no feedback. You need to build that into the team, work it in over time. Just coming out of nowhere and starting to give feedback to everyone out of the blue will be a bit of a shock. Let it build, Chief. If there's no culture of feedback in the team, then take your time building it. The history of leadership quality in the team, so that might be you, or it could be someone else, could even be a history of leadership quality across your organization. People perform at their current level because of the environment they're operating in. You must consider that. If that person has never been led well in their entire career, and that is so common, they've never had a great leader, that is important to remember before you give feedback. The next is their own individual performance and career trajectory. Have they flatlined? Are they are they sort of tracking up? Are they tracking down? This is important. They will know this. They will sense what's going on. It's very important for you as a leader to consider that before you give feedback. You can even just almost like draw a line across a page. Hey, what has been their trajectory over the last sort of 5 or 10 years? Where are they now? Are they stalled? Are they going up? Are they going down? That's important for you. The next one is trust. As we said before, no trust, no feedback. Just give yourself a bit of a score. What is my level of trust with this person out of 5? And if you're 3 or less, then build trust first. Give, Chief. Listen to their stories. Seek to understand. Support them in their roles to build that trust up. And the last is the outcome required from feedback. What do we need to achieve and by when? This is really important because it will tell you like the depth of the feedback you can give right now. Do you have a little bit of time to build up their performance over 6 to 12 months? Or do they need something right now because this is becoming urgent? That outcome, that urgency is really important. So when I'm starting to work with a client, I actually gather all this information through some discussions with them when we have our first coaching session. I do the same when I'm working with a team. And it gives me the context of feedback. And then it allows me to know how I should actually give feedback, right? And there's a whole range of ways to deliver like a true chief. And we're going to deal with that in episode 358. Chief, remember, I've got all of this in a download for you. Go to chiefmaker.com/feedback. That's going to cover it for today. I want you to think about this. These are the context elements. Again, I'll repeat them one more time. The business performance and change urgency. The culture of feedback in the team. The history of leadership quality in the team and the business. Their own individual performance and trajectory. Your own personal level of trust with them and the outcome required from feedback. Chief, that's your context. Be thinking about that before you even give feedback, because then you can go on to deliver like a true chief. All right, Chief, as always, remember to stay epic. Chief, all the resources can be found at chiefmaker.com/357, or just check it out on YouTube. Go to chiefmaker.com/YouTube. Chief, do you want to know how to give and receive feedback like an elite sporting coach? I've bridged the gap between elite sport and business now for about 15 years. And I've been taking some of those lessons from sport into business. We've turned that into a really cool downloadable PDF. And there's also some accompanying episodes of the podcast. Just go to chiefmaker.com/feedback. There's a really awesome PDF. It's got templates, it's got scripts, process, things to consider about how to give feedback, prepare for feedback, and foster a culture in your team. chiefmaker.com/feedback. And if you would like to stay in touch and hear all about some of the best resources you can find anywhere in the world to improve your performance at work, go to chiefmaker.com/subscribe. Now, Chief, if you're yet to rate the episode and subscribe, I hope you'll do so soon. It helps others see the magnificent value that the chiefs and gurus bring to their life and career. So make sure you hit subscribe on your podcast app now, give it a 5-star rating if you think it's worthy, and leave a short review about your favourite episode. Righto, Chiefs, as always, remember to stay epic.